Welcome to the Riverside Downs tutorial on changing the backlighting on a 2003 GSX-R 1000 gauge cluster. I'm going to do a quick demonstration on how to change out those ugly orange LEDs in your gauge cluster for some better looking colors. In my case, I'm going to do white. If you are very inexperienced with soldering, if you don't have the right equipment, this isn't a job for you. I would recommend you get a very fine point soldering iron, lots of flux, lots of soldering wick, and most importantly, a magnifying glass or microscope. The first thing you'll need to do is dismount the gauge cluster from the bike. In my case, there was a electrical connector in the back and 2 screws in the front. Next, I'm going to go ahead and open up the case of the gauge cluster. There are a number of Phillips head screws on the back which will reveal the circuit board inside. I pulled the circuit board out and now I need to get access to all of the LEDs. I'm going to have to remove this LCD panel by desoldering the 30 connections on the back, as well as pulling those 2 screws. I'll also have to remove this faceplate by pulling the needle out and undoing a single screw on the back. After removing this screw, there's a tab here that needs to be pushed in order for the faceplate to come off. To desolder those 30 connections, you can either use a solder sucker like this one, or simply use some solder wick with a standard soldering iron. That's the way I'm going to be using it because my solder sucker doesn't work right now. After removing the faceplate and the LCD, you need to locate the LEDs on the main board. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 amber LEDs that light up the faceplate, and 1, 2, 3, 4 amber LEDs that light up the LCD screen. There are 4 other ones for the turn signal fuel light, neutral light, and high beam light. And you also have your shift light and your FI light here. I'll only be changing the amber backlight LEDs right now. Desolder each one of those LEDs just like you did for the 30 pins on the LCD. Once you've desoldered the old LEDs, you can solder on your new LEDs. Make sure that you do it in the same orientation that they were before. You'll see a marker on the corner of the board where the LED mounts, the little arrow to denote the same orientation of the LED. Use liquid flux to do the soldering. Makes it a whole lot easier, and try and be very careful not to keep the soldering iron on the board for very long to avoid damaging other components nearby. Once you've finished soldering all the LEDs on, you can go ahead and reassemble. First, you'll need to solder the LCD back into place. After you've got the LCD soldered, replace the faceplate, snap it into place, and then fasten the 1 screw on the back, and then you can put the needle back where it came from. Once you have finished attaching the front faceplate and the screws on the back to hold the faceplate and LCD screen in, put the board back in its housing, close it back up with all the screws in place, and reinstall it back onto the bike. Now I have the gauge plugged back in. We're going to go ahead and turn it on and see what it looks like. We've got a nice white gauge. You can expect to spend a few dollars on LEDs if you buy them from eBay. The equipment is the rest of the cost if you don't already have it.